before Cody gets rolling, what I'll do is go over a little bit of housekeeping in terms of how we run our webinars here at Search Engine Journal and things you can do. So first of all, Cody will probably be presenting for about 35 to 40 minutes. During that time, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the question box, which is located on your GoToWebinar control panel. After that 35, 40-minute presentation, once Cody's done, then we're going to spend the rest of the webinar time really diving into the Q&A. Typically, you know, Cody's going to have a great webinar, so get ready for that. And then once the Q&A starts, pull out your pencil and paper, because there's going to be some great questions coming through, great conversation, great answers, etc., etc. So that's really when it's time to shine there on the Q&A part of the webinar. Also, the official hashtag for today is hashtag SEJThinkTank. So if you'd like to tell all of your Twitter followers out there that you're currently learning about link building teams and campaigns, etc., etc., please do. Make sure you drop the hashtag. If you have any questions, you can also always ask them on Twitter. We'll be following there as well. And then as you see, you might also want to drop the Page One Power handle to get a hold of Cody and give them some Twitter love. And just to let everyone know, after the webinar is over today, we'll also be doing a survey. We also do take a video download of the webinar, which we will be publishing on the Search Engine Journal YouTube channel. And then last but not least, any questions that we don't get answered during the Q&A segment today, we'll be addressing after the fact and sending out to all of you who have attended today as well. And we'll also be doing a couple of polls, so you'll see poll pop-ups happen during the course of the webinar itself. I think that's it on my side. I'm going to hand things off to you, Cody, to get rolling. So,
all right. Thanks again, Lauren. Like I said, it's really exciting for me to be here talking link building on the Search Engine Journal Think Tank. What we're talking about today is something very near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about link building, but specifically how you build and manage link building teams and allocate those teams and those individuals to different campaigns. So a little about myself. I've been working here at Page One Power since 2012. And so I've got a lot of experience in a variety of different link building capacities. I've wore many hats here at Page One Power, including being the client service guy on the phone with the client, handling that aspect of it. I've also been on the project management side, kind of the strategic development. And my current capacity now is I help manage a department of our content writers that specifically are tasked with various link building strategies and tactics as it relates to creating and sharing and distributing content with a specific goal of obtaining authoritative links. And also, by the way, I'm a big Cubs fan, so that should be noted as well. So with that out of the way, I think we're going to jump right into the first poll question. I'll toss it Lauren's way for that.
Awesome. It looks like we may be experiencing some technical difficulties. The poll did launch, but we're not seeing your slides change, Cody. So you might want to check to see whether or not you're in presenter mode on your end as well. But I'll go ahead and read the poll. So, what best describes your current role in SEO? What best describes where you are in terms of working on SEO-oriented projects? Please select one of the following. 1, in-house. 2, agency. 3, freelance. Or 4, consultant. So please take the time to fill in the poll box. And we'll give everyone a couple more seconds to do so. Typically, we get about 50 to 60% come in. And let's go ahead and share the results for everyone to see. Whoops. Okay. Looks like we may be having an issue happening live. Hang in there, everybody. We're going to figure it out. Um, we're seeing your basically your notes mode, Cody. So do you want to click Start New, or just click to present?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I need to click. Let's see.
All right, everyone. While Cody's getting that together, here we go.
That should be good.
Looks like we have the right slide. So,
Sorry about that.
Cody. That's all right.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. All right, so let's jump into this. Let's talk a little bit about how we manage a link building campaign. I'm going to start with kind of this presentation has kind of been broken into 4 sections, somewhat in order of importance. And I think, the first thing that you have to do when you're talking about running a successful link building campaign and getting the team together that's gonna execute this campaign is you need to have your core philosophies established. And we'll get a little bit into what that means here at Page One Power. But I think identifying your values and your philosophies and the way that you're going to go about achieving your goals is really important to establish before you even start thinking about what specific things you're going to do or who's going to do them. You need to have those philosophies in place first. You have to have the right team, the right people in the group in order to successfully do any sort of marketing initiative, but especially with link building. There's so many different moving parts. There's so many different things that are going to be happening at once that if you don't have the right team, if you don't have the right blend of individuals, you're not going to have a very successful campaign. And so having the right people is absolutely paramount to any sort of successful link building campaign. You've got to have the right relationship with your clients. If you're an agency that's running link building, that client communication, setting expectations properly, you know how important that is. And this is also important if you're kind of an in-house and you're having to communicate with other stakeholders up and down, like the bosses and that kind of thing, and interdepartmental communication is also very important. So having that really open and transparent line of communication between you and the client, or you and your bosses, absolutely important. Make sure everything's on the same page before you even begin a link building campaign. And finally, in order to successfully learn from your mistakes, trial and error, which a lot of link building is, you've got to have mechanisms for monitoring and managing the results. And that could be the results of a specific campaign or initiative, the results of the work on a certain type of client, or using a certain link building tactic, or something that we deal with a lot here is monitoring and managing the results of the individual link builder across a wide variety of campaigns that they might be on. And so really those are kind of the 4 things that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to really start with philosophy and talk a lot about the philosophy of link building, what our philosophy here at Page One Power is, and what we've learned over the years, managing these campaigns. Like I said, link building is a lot of trial and error, and we've learned a lot from the things that we've been successful with, and learned a lot from the things we haven't been so successful with. So to talk a little bit more about philosophy, I mean, the philosophy is going to help define your purpose. And this purpose is going to help drive your goals. And so if your philosophy and your goals are not aligned with one another, you're really not going to be very successful. And so you always have to make sure that if say your goal is to I want to rank #1 for this particular very competitive keyword, and I want to do that in 2 months. If that's the goal, and your values are that link building is something that takes time, and the results are going to come over a longer period, and it's something that you build up for. If your goal is, hey, I want to rank first overnight, but your values aren't aligned with that, it's not going to be a successful campaign. And so you got to make sure that the things that you value, the things that you find important about link building, and that you want to make sure that you're maintaining through a campaign, you have to make sure that that's matching whatever the individual goal is of your campaign. Here's a picture of us, our teams here, located in beautiful Boise, Idaho, and I'll talk a little bit about what our philosophy is here. And our philosophy is that links, the best kind of links, really represent value being spread around online. If a client if one of our clients legitimately has useful information that is valuable to potential users, that's the kind of stuff that's going to get links to, and it's our job to go out and find those opportunities and foster those relationships and find the right audience that would want to share that information. And so, that's kind of our core philosophy. And once we have that, like our purpose, in general, we run a lot of different campaigns customized to different clients' needs, but really what we found to be the most effective is when we're executing campaigns designed to broadly increase organic search traffic over a long period of time, as opposed to, say, a campaign that's designed to rank one page, one keyword in a short period of time. Not very effective doing that when we have longer term campaigns designed to drive traffic and increase rankings over a wide variety of sections of a website. Those are the campaigns that have proven to be the most effective in our estimation. And so, but we don't want to just have links going here, there, and everywhere without some sort of targeted focus. And so we do need to have targeted emphasis on certain sections of a website. And like I said, we don't want that targeted emphasis to be so narrow as to really make it so you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. If your link building campaign is just, oh, I just want this one page to rank for this one keyword, we're probably going to advise you that you need a little bit more than that to be successful. But having a specific target theme, a keyword theme, where there might be multiple pieces of content all centered around that all centered around that keyword theme. If you do that, then you're going to have more opportunities to get links. You're going to have a diversity of the links that you're acquiring, and you're going to rank those important pages much better than you would if you were just laser focused on getting links to that one page. So how do we go about securing links? Well, we like to emphasize strategies and tactics that are going to have lasting value. In other words, the links that are going to matter the most are the links that are going to actually be around and be useful to users. For a link to really be valuable and to have lasting value, it needs to be offering value to the site that's linking to you. Obviously, your site is getting the value. And third, the person who clicks on that link. And so if the link doesn't make sense and isn't providing something for all three of those parties, then it's probably not a link that's going to have lasting value in Google's eyes either. And frankly, those types of links are links that maybe you don't want to bother with anyway. They could potentially get you in trouble for a manual penalty or an algorithmic decrease. But more than likely, what you're going to find is it's just a waste of time. There's going to be no value there if you're just getting links that only make sense for you, that you're just trying to take all that link juice just for yourself, and it's not offering any actual value to the user, or it doesn't make sense for the site, and you've found some way to manipulate your link on there. Don't do that. Ask yourself this question with every campaign that you're starting: is what is the value add? What is my value proposition? Why would anybody want to link to me? No tricks, no manipulations, no shortcuts, just real, genuine content created with a specific audience in mind, informational, in-depth, and then find the right audiences online where people would be interested in that content. And if they click on the link that you're building, you want them to know exactly where they're going to go before they click on it. And once they do land on that page, you know that they know that they went to a place, they were linked to a place where they would want to be with it. It backs up the information that they've seen, or provides more, shines more light on the questions they're asking. So when we look at a link building campaign, we're thinking, what do we want these links to achieve? And the first thing is, obviously, they pass authority. They pass PageRank, link juice, whatever you want to call it. But the thing that most people are looking for with a link building campaign is they want to build the authority of their entire domain, or perhaps specific sections or specific pages on that domain. And so you're looking for links that have that authority themselves. But authority is not the only thing that links do. And maybe the other most crucial aspect is it's passing topical keyword signals, what we in-house call relevancy, essentially. It's telling Google that this page is linked, page A that's linking to page B, they're connected. They must be related. And so things like what is the domain level relevance, domain to domain level relevance, but more important, the page to page relevance. And what are the signals that the link itself is showing, the anchor text, the words around the anchor text. Those types of things are very important. Obviously, some of the best links are going to drive consistent click-through traffic as well. And finally, link building can also have the benefit of giving you some brand visibility. Now, I want to point out that not every link that you build is going to check every one of these boxes off. In fact, if we build a link that has really high authority and it's very topically relevant, and people are clicking through it directly, and it's driving lots of traffic, and it's on a website that has so much visibility that there's a PR boost just from that link being there. If a link that we built had all of those attributes, that would be like a white whale link. But really what you're looking for in a link building campaign is not to judge each individual link on this set of criteria, but judge the campaign as a whole by this set of criteria. Every link you get should have one or more of these attributes, and throughout the course of a long-term link building campaign, when you're getting dozens and dozens of links over a long period of time, you're going to want some of them to possess all of these attributes. Looks like it's time for another poll question. Lauren, can you see this one, or should I just ask it?
I got it going. It's okay. So it looks like we're back on track. Would you like to learn more about link building services from Page One Power? Please go ahead and fill in. Yes, maybe, but I have a few questions, or not at this time. I'd suggest probably clicking one of the top two. And we have about 56% of you have voted thus far. So I'll give you a couple seconds, 60%. Let's try to get to 70%. That's always one of our internal goals here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, last chance, closing the poll. And we hit 70%. So cool. It looks like, yes, a good amount of folks would like to learn more. So let's get some more knowledge.
That's exciting. All right, well, thank you, Lauren, and thank you for participating in that poll. All right, so now that we've talked a lot about the core philosophies that you're going to need to define, document, share communicate with all participants before you start a link building campaign, let's talk a little bit about managing the team and the individuals that comprise the team. I mean, like any business, it's going to be the people that's creating your product that are going to make the big difference between you and your competitors. Page One Power here, we have around 50 link builders, all in different teams with different specialties and operating different campaigns at different times. And really, all the successful campaigns that we ever have are kind of on the backs of these employees. I'd like to say that, like, oh, it's because of the grand strategy direction that maybe somebody in my position does, but it really isn't. It's all about having the right pieces in place and being able to trust your team to get the job done. However, managing a team of SEOs is very difficult, especially if you're working in an agency like we are, where we're dealing with different clients and every day and across a wide variety of niches. And one minute we might be being asked to work on a certain type of client, and the next minute we're working on something entirely different. And that kind of and all those moving parts, make it really difficult to effectively manage SEOs, particularly link building campaigns. And this is something we've learned a lot about here in the last few years. So when it comes to building that team, there's several considerations that you have to make. Obviously, it's how do you go about hiring them? What kind of traits and attributes, make a good link builder? How do you train them? How do you get them up to speed? Once you have them up to speed and you have that talent, how do you allocate them? How do you determine which clients are going to get the work of which individuals, and which tactics are going to be done by which individuals? Those things can be very, very tricky. Staffing fluctuations is obviously an important aspect in any business, particularly in SEO businesses. How do you retain that talent that you've invested in? And also we'll talk a little bit about company culture and the importance of that as well. But maybe the most interesting part and the part that we've learned the most about over the years through trial and error is, what kind of traits are we looking for with a link builder? And if you're looking to build an in-house link building team or beef up your agency's link building teams, here's some information from years of experience on our end in trying to hire people and figuring out what the things we look for when we're hiring link builders. Obviously, they need to be effective communication. Communication is the core of link building. It's the outreach. It's whether it's an email, whether it's social media, whatever mechanisms that you're using for communication. People have to be an effective communicator, written, orally, all of that in order to be successful at link building. That's kind of obvious, but you really can't be a successful link builder unless you're a successful outreach, or it really doesn't matter what strategies and tactics you're employing. So that's very important. Obviously, persuasiveness, and not just the ability to sell something, but the ability to find the value proposition in whatever it is that you're doing and present that effectively. Obviously, the link builders that we have that are most effective are ones that are intellectually curious about a wide variety of subjects and are able to jump in and learn something quickly about maybe a client or a niche or a subject that they don't know a lot about, but they have that innate intellectual curiosity. Along with that goes, of course, critical thinking. Organization is a big one as well. You're going to be unable to manage a long-term link building campaign, especially if you're bouncing between different tactics and strategies, or working on multiple campaigns at once if you don't have mechanisms for keeping yourself organized. We use several tools here at Page One Power, including BuzzStream, in order to effectively manage our outreach and our targets. And here's an interesting one: independent but collaborative. What we find here at Page One Power is the employees that are the most successful are the ones that can be given kind of independent tasks and are able to kind of just hone in, maybe put the headphones on and just get things done, but are also in a different, maybe when we're working on a different campaign or working in a different strategy or tactic, they're able to jump in and shift that gear to be more collaborative and work with the team. And so that ability to do both of those things is very important as well. And then maybe this is one of the biggest traits that has separated people that are successful at link building long term versus ones that maybe get burned out quickly, is they have that motivation, that what we call the stick-to-itiveness. And really that's super important, because you're going to have more failures than successes when it comes to link building. Even the most successful strategies and tactics, you know, on the coolest clients with the best content, you're only going to maybe be pushing a 20% conversion rate, probably less. And so you're going to have way more flat no's. You're going to be rejected more than you're going to be successful. And link builders who kind of take that rejection to heart, or they fear that rejection, so they don't even make the attempts, will fail 10 out of 10 times. But those ones that have that perseverance to stick to it are the ones that are really going to be successful. So those are some of the traits that you should look for if you're looking to build a team. We've experimented with a number of different ways to train our employees when we get here. We've gone through long kind of classroom learning where we try to teach our new employees, you know, all the aspects of SEO kind of before we have them start working on client campaigns, and then we've also experimented with, hey, you know, like how can we get people contributing to campaigns early on, and really what we found is one of the best ways to train is to have a strong support system, but also just kind of you learn by doing. And so we kind of joke around about like, hey, well, you've been here a while, we've got a good support system for you, it's time to throw you in the deep end and see how you do. And then here's where it really gets tricky and you know can be difficult if you're managing multiple link building campaigns. It's when you have somebody that's trained in a particular tactic or is exhibiting really good performance in a particular you know, link building strategy or working on a particular client. How do you allocate those to perhaps the multiple different campaigns that are running? You want to match an employee's skill set or your team's skill set with what the goals are and what needs to be accomplished. And so once you've decided what strategy is the right strategy, the second question you have to ask yourself is, do I have the right team to execute that strategy? Executing a good or going into a campaign with a good strategy but not necessarily the right resources to pull it off is only going to lead to failure. And so you've got to make sure that those are all aligned. Obviously, things like personal interests matter. I mentioned earlier that I'm a big baseball fan. I'm going to be more effective I'm going to be more effective working on a campaign for our sports ticket reseller than I am on a client that sells dollhouse furniture, for instance. I'd like to think that I could be effective if I jumped into either, but obviously I'm going to be more effective in the communication within that certain niche and reaching out to influencers and creating content around something that I'm actually passionate about is always going to be more beneficial than kind of starting from scratch. But you're not always going to be able to have enthusiasts in every niche with every campaign that you're running either. And so that therein lies, some of the dilemmas that you'll face every day if you've got a link building team managing multiple campaigns at once. What about staffing fluctuations? What happens if you lose a key employee? I think anyone knows how much it can hurt when you've got a employee that can really perform consistently in under difficult circumstances, that kind of thing, and all of a sudden that person's gone. Not only have you lost that employee, but the campaign that they're on has lost it too. Like, how are you prepared? Are you if you have a particular member of your team that if you lost them, wow, all these campaigns would be ruined. You really need to kind of plan in advance for that. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. And then here's another thing. What if a client calls us up on the phone this afternoon and says, "Hey, I want to invest, I want to start a very, very large campaign, and I'm gonna need 8 or 10 dedicated employees on this campaign, and we want to get involved. We want to get started right away." How do you manage that? Certainly part of that is kind of smart growth and making sure that you're not, that you have the right resources in place before you say yes to a campaign. But certainly we've been in situations over the years where we've had to hire quickly and get people up to speed quickly and move pieces around in order to manage those fluctuations. Anytime that you're running campaigns, that are month to month or quarter to quarter, and you don't necessarily have those year-long contracts, you're going to have a plan for when clients leave or when more clients come on. How are you going to manage those staffing fluctuations? Really important consideration. And what about client turnover? When a client leaves, especially if you've got a large campaign going and it leaves, and all of a sudden you find yourself overstaffed. How do you manage that? And these are things, there's been in the last 5 years here at Page One Power, and I'm sure this is true at every agency out there, there's been ebbs and flows, and times where we're getting more clients than we can handle, and times where it slows down a little bit, and keeping the team together, keeping morale high in both of those instances, because there's obviously, if you're in a situation where you're thinking about layoffs or furloughs, that comes with big time negative consequences. But so too if you're understaffed and you're finding yourself that you're asking people to do twice as much work in the same amount of time, and then people are stressed and they don't, and so making sure that you have that right balance and that you're not growing too quickly, or all of it's really, really, really important if you want to keep that that team happy and effective. So employee retention, obviously compensation is only one part of it. Or the factor, how much money they're making. That's always big, but any company culture guide will tell you that there's more than just that. But you want employees to be happy, to be recognized, to be continuously challenged. Link building is an inherently challenging activity. But it also sometimes can be a dry activity, or there's certain tactics that you maybe wouldn't want to do all day, every day, prospecting through lists of sites and spreadsheets and stuff like that. You need to diversify the challenges a little bit and keep giving people new things to learn, new obstacles to overcome, and do that in a collaborative environment where you're part of the team. And to us, that's kind of been the core of our company culture, is trying to really adopt a team mentality. All of our people are in-house, located here in Boise, Idaho. We don't outsource. We really want to have our link builders working together in teams, whether that's all in the same room or communicating constantly via Slack. Those types of things has really helped us drive our company culture. And so let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about, we talked about the teams, let's talk about the clients themselves. We talked a little bit about transparency being key, that you have to have that trust, that you have to communicate, the important things. You have to not just communicate the successes, but also the failures, also also the things that worked well, but the things that didn't work well. Or if you're talking about initiating a campaign, you're going to want to communicate clearly the kind of obstacles you expect to overcome. If you're in the client communication business, the last thing you want to do is be constantly just telling the client what they want to hear, when reality doesn't necessarily back it up. So of course, strategy development is first. We talked a little bit about this at the beginning. Are the goals and expectations aligned properly? And that's where the client communication at the beginning of that campaign, setting proper expectations, being able to, from our agency perspective, being able to say, yes, we think that this is the right way to achieve your right things to do to achieve your goals, and yes, we believe we have the resources and the talent available to commit to that and be successful. And if we don't, then it's much better to say, hey, I don't think this is the right strategy, or here are some of the hurdles that we expect to run into. And communicating that clearly and being as realistic as possible, absolutely crucial. Otherwise, you're going to put that team that you spent so much time and effort into building and fostering a positive environment, you're going to put them in a very difficult spot, and you're going to lose a lot of that company culture if people are constantly being asked to work on campaigns and accomplish tasks that weren't realistic to begin with. So when you're starting that strategy assessment, one of the things that you're going to ask yourself, obviously, is what are the resources I have at my disposal? For a link building campaign, it's going to be the people that we've talked a lot about, and it's also going to be the resources that you have on your website. Obviously, you're going to think about the long-term goals. I want to build traffic to these set of pages, or these are my important converting pages, and here's the content that we've created that surrounds those converting pages, and this is where the focal point of our campaign is going to be on. Establishing those goals, making sure they're realistic, making sure that they align with the value, making sure you have the right people in the room to get those done. Obviously, you're going to look at the current rankings, what the competition's doing, and a little bit of niche by niche assessment as well. And then when you're ready to execute this strategy, you got to look at that team. You got to say, okay, what are the different skills and abilities that I need to be a part of this particular campaign? At Page One Power, we have different people working on different campaigns at different periods of time, but we really want to make sure that we would like to have some continuity with people so they're working on a campaign for a long time. And if a client wants to come in and be a long-term partner for us, we want their link builders to be long-term, to build and grow with the campaign. We're not going to know as much about you or your business or the niche or the competition on day one as we will 6 months into it or a year into it. And we're continuously growing in our knowledge of what it's like to build links, not just in general, but for a specific website, grows with each day that we work on that campaign. And one of the big thing for us, these days is the question about bandwidth. How much work, how many different campaigns can a link builder or one of our link building teams be a part of? How do we allocate those resources? How do we add new people to that to increase that bandwidth? And what's the reasonable parameters that we can ask our individuals or ask our teams to actually produce in a given period of time? We talk a lot about linkable assets and link building. We talk about how you've got to have content that's uniquely valuable, that's informational, that your best link targets are not going to be your bottom of the funnel or mid funnel pieces that are designed to get the conversion themselves or to really push through push that conversion through. Where you're really going to have the most success with link building is that top of the funnel content. And really the question to ask yourself is this website even providing enough unique value to even earn the links? We always tell our clients, we're only going to be able to help you get the links that you deserve. We're not going to be able to get great, awesome links if you don't have great, awesome content, if you're not providing that value. Sure, here and there we might be able to pull a rabbit out of our hat and get a great link to a site that doesn't have uniquely great content, but that's not going to be sustainable. For a sustainable campaign, you've got to be providing value. And in any initial campaign, as you're launching it, you're gonna kind of identify a few strategies that you're going to go, but you have to be continuously testing those and making sure that they're the right strategies. And sometimes you're going to think, okay, I think this particular angle is going to work, and then you're going to try it and it's not going to work, and you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, should we try this same angle a different way, or should we go in a different direction? And so not only making sure that the right strategy is in place, but constantly re-examining that strategy and adding new things to the mix, diversifying your tactics. I do not recommend any link building campaign be built on only acquiring one specific type of link with very narrow parameters. You're going to find you boxed yourself into so few options that you're not going to be able to have a sustainable campaign. And then, of course, the time and the bandwidth of the employees. You know, can we achieve this thing in the time period that we're given? Also, an important factor when it comes to the strategy is the integration between other initiatives. Here at our agency, at Page One Power, we have different departments that are specialized in different link building tactics. And so, if a client comes to us for a campaign, we might be going with several of these different strategies and tactics at once, meaning that there's several different teams and individuals involved, and the managers that are running those individual teams. And so, just within our own agency, we really have to make sure that we're communicating effectively with all the team members involved. And this becomes even more crucial if you're talking about different departments within a company. You're talking about, you've got maybe your link building falls under the SEO umbrella, but you also have a PR department that's also doing some sort of influencer outreach that really, when you look at it, looks very, very similar to what link building in 2017 should look like, and that crossover, and so you know what other initiatives are happening right now, both specific to the link building campaign and all of your marketing initiatives. How can we get those integrated? How can we get those aligned and working together? And obviously, using your experience to know, hey, has this tactic been successful in the past? After 5 years of managing and running link building campaigns, I oftentimes can tell right away when a client comes in the door whether or not I think we'll be effective with the particular tactic that they're asking about, because we've seen it so many times before. We can say, you know, with reasonable certainty that certain angles are going to work and others are going to be very difficult. And so leveraging that you know, past information, the successes, the failures, the trials, the errors, huge to be continuously getting better. So yeah, you know, looking at the things like, you know, hey, who in this room has really done well with this particular tactic? Who really loves this niche? Who has really, you know, become a member of various, you know, niche communities in which that they actually have some influence and ability to communicate? Who can speak the language, quote unquote, of your niche? And what existing relationships might be out there that you can leverage? Even if you're starting a new campaign, if somebody's been building links for a while, there's probably some, you know, if they've been doing it the right way, where they're going out and they're actually building real relationships with webmasters and publishers and site owners and all that kind of thing, and those relationships are going to be useful beyond just the one campaign that you might be working on now. If there's mutual value being exchanged, you can certainly utilize those relationships that you're building up, you know, for more than just a one-off link building attempt. So now that we've talked a little bit about, we've talked about the philosophies, we talked about building the team, we've talked about, you know, allocating those resources to a particular client and what the specific campaigns are like. So now let's take a step back and talk a little bit about how we test and measure those results. You absolutely want to use proven metrics to objectively analyze performance. But as we're going to talk a lot about here, it's very, very difficult to distill something as broad as link building down to just one or two objective measurements. There's so many subjective things to take into consideration anyway. And even if we knew right now exactly, you know, how links were valued and exactly what Google's algorithm looked like today, it's going to change tomorrow anyway. And so you definitely want to have well-defined metrics that you're going to look at, but you can't just look at those. So when we're looking at metrics here, you know, I want to know how successful is my team being, you know, and you know, how good are they at building links? How good is the content team at Page One Power? You know, how are we doing compared to how we did last month? You know, where do we want to be? Those are things that I'm asking myself, and my colleagues are asking ourselves all the time. And then we're also looking at how successful has it been on this particular campaign for this particular client. Kind of two different things. And then how good is this particular link builder at building links based on strategy, based on tactics, or are they good at building links in a wide variety of strategies and tactics? Really difficult questions to answer, but ones that you have to attempt to answer, in order to be able to effectively manage multiple campaigns at once. So like I said, data is important, it adds context, but don't make the decisions based on data alone. And really, kind of what I'm talking about here is don't fall into the trap of just saying, okay, the only thing that matters here is domain authority, and so we're going to use domain authority to judge the entire, effectiveness of this campaign. And if we're able to get X number of links that are above 50 DA, that's good, and if we don't, that's bad. That's kind of taking that very narrow, overly objective view and not looking at the big picture. The page one power here, we talk about metrics in two ways, qualitative and quantitative. The qualitative metrics that we use on a day-to-day basis is obviously Moz. We use Majestic. I particularly like TrustFlow. We use SEMrush to see what kind of traffic they're getting and how they're getting it, look at those estimates. And then obviously relevance is a qualitative metric too, but certainly a difficult one to put a number on here. And same with, what's the notional human value of a link? If a human were to click on this link, would they find it valuable, or would they find it manipulative, or would they find it, well, why did I click on this? Why is this link even here? We've, over the last year, kind of developed kind of an internal mechanism for kind of judging the particular value of a link that's kind of basically on a 5-point scale that takes all of these things into consideration, not just the authority metrics like domain authority or page authority, but also really forces us to ask that question about the relevance of the page and what's the human value, which a lot of that is in the contextual relevance. Does this link make sense on the page that it is in the context that it's in there? And so all of the links that we build kind of go through kind of basically a judging criteria that we do, where we assign a score of 1 to 5, with 5 being that white whale link that checks off all the boxes possible with a link, and a 1 link being like, well, there might be a little bit of modest value here, but it's not really something that we want to continue doing to have a successful campaign. And many factors go into judging the value of a link. Link neighborhoods, things like what other links are on that page, or the location of the link on the page is important. But really, the most important things are: is this page that's linking, does it have authority? Does it make contextual sense? And is it sending some relevancy keywords? I'm sorry, some keyword signals to relevant themes. Is that also being passed with those links? If a link is doing all of those things, it's going to be a valuable link. So that's, like I say, don't just chase authority. Don't just look at domain authority and think that means it's got a higher DA. That must mean that it's a better link. That's not true, especially the domain authority kind of scales with spam. In other words, some sites that have artificially higher domain authorities might actually be the most harmful for you. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that lower DA necessarily means lower quality. It might be a decent judge of how much authority is being passed, but it isn't going to tell you anything about the value of that website and who uses it. Is it actually used, or is it just a website that just only exists for link building purposes? There's a lot of those sites out there. They have good DAs. If you're focusing only on DA, you're going to be wasting your time going after some links that really have no value. And you're going to be passing on a lot of links that really could grow in value over time because you were so focused on not, we only want DA 40 and above or something like that. You want diversity. That's important, and that also includes diversity in the metrics that you're looking at. Common sense criteria. Does it make sense? Is it relevant? Then we also look at quantitative metrics, which is obviously how many links did you build, how much time did you spend doing it, and then detailed things like how many sites were found, how many emails were sent, and what the percentage of the response rate is. And that needs to be looked at on an individual employee or a team basis, but also you also need to suss out, which client was it for, which niche was it for, what was the tactic that was going. We see that the response rate or the conversion rate that we get to our outreach can really vary based on not only the tactic that's being used, but really vary based on the niche and what you know, the landscape surrounding that particular client. So that's all for the presentation. I hope we have some time for some questions and answers, and I see we got some good questions, so I'll just kind of jump in.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for all of that. And thanks for kind of putting together how you all use different metric sets from different tool sets to look at the value of something. Mm-hmm. Like, even in the questions here, I'm seeing what's the best DA? What should I look at? DA, DA, DA. And one thing to remember is domain authority and page authority are one set of metrics that is defined only by one tool company, not by Google, not by Bing. We're talking about some metrics that have a lot behind them, but they're put together by one tool company being Moz, right? So you also have other tool companies like Majestic that have citation flow and trust flow. And one of the questions that came through was, oh, should I look at DA or should I look at content personas? If you utilize majestic.com, you can look at content trust flow. So trust flow is their metric, which looks at the trustworthiness of the site and tries to mimic the way that Google looks at trustworthiness by looking at the value of links that link to that site, et cetera, et cetera. But with them, what they'll also do is chop that up into different topical matters. So you can look and see if that site is a topic, if it's medically oriented, if it's science oriented, if it's something about cars, and judge the trust flow that way. So I really like the fact that you're suggesting, hey, look at what Moz reports, look at what Majestic reports, look at what SEMrush reports, and other tool sets, because just looking at one set and one number isn't going to define anything. Secondly, numbers grow over time, right? So if you're looking at a brand new website, there's, I'm just trying to think off. Okay, Chris Brogan launched a new business website about a year ago called Owner Magazine. And when that launched, it didn't have domain authority. But I know that there's quality content and time being put into developing that to be a leader in its industry. So if it's a domain authority of 1 or 10, I'd rather buy low and sell high, so to speak. So I'd rather get in when that thing is growing than after 2-3 years when it's become a juggernaut. It's harder to get them to cover you, or it's harder to get that link. Yes, so thanks for going over that. Really good stuff. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read through these questions as they come in. So, do you have any suggestions on keyword suggestion tools that help to define the kind of anchor text someone should be going after when developing a link building campaign?
Yeah, there's some tools we use for that. The first thing I want to say about that is when you're thinking about what anchor text you should be using, the right way to start with that is not what keyword am I trying to rank for. The right way to think about anchor text is what makes the most sense for the user. I've harped on that many, many times, but really what would compel a user to click, tell them what that is about, and then once they click on it, they get that information. And so if you're strategic about the content that you're creating, if you're smart about making sure that content has appeal and is tangentially related to your core keywords, that oftentimes you're going to be getting your keywords in your anchor text and varying it. I don't think anchor text variance is quite as emphasized as much as it was a few years ago, because what people were doing then was over-optimizing, getting all of their links with only exact match anchor text of their buy keywords, and then people realized that Google caught onto that very quickly and stamped that out a little bit. And so now you're much more likely to be dealing with where you want to. Yes, you want to have a variety of anchor text, but we don't have as many clients that come into us asking for that as a specific strategy, like, oh no, we've over-optimized our anchor text, now we need to get some variety. Really what we're trying to do with every link that we build is to have it have anchor text that makes sense for the user. And if you're consistently doing that, and if the landing pages, the content pages that you're getting the links to are designed strategically, you're going to find that it's very helpful in optimizing your keywords. But I would not start a campaign just thinking, oh, we need to get this type of anchor text. You're going to be thinking about what pages you want to get links from, to what pages you want to get links from. Really, the best anchor text is the anchor text that that is editorially given, and you're not asking for anchor text. It's the anchor text that a journalist or a webmaster would just kind of naturally thinks makes the most sense. That's what I say to focus on anchor text wise.
Yeah, like people are not going to link to Nike.com with shoes, tennis shoes,
Right.
sneakers, basketball shoes, etc. They're going to link to it with Nike shoes, maybe Jordans, whatever it may be. And Google does a very good job of figuring out what the intent is there, and also if that's a keyword modification, so to speak. And you see that a lot. If you just go to Google right now and search for a term, you'll see them bold all of the terms that are relevant to that. And so if you search for coffee, they typically bold Starbucks.
Yep.
It's not a keyword modifier of coffee, but it means the same thing. Here's a really interesting question. So this person does link building for clients, and it says that he's a firm believer in building links to drive rankings, and of course, in the back end, maybe a little bit of traffic. But a lot of clients are arguing, and they're looking specifically for links that drive traffic themselves. What are your thoughts there on alleviating that and bringing a solution to the table that helps?
It's really hard to build, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, that our campaigns are designed to build links that create broad authority and topical relevance to increase organic traffic over time, meaning basically that you're going to see the risings of rankings across core pages, but also other related pages, and not so much on links that drive direct traffic. And so it is quite a challenge when either a client wants those links that are driving direct traffic, or has the understanding or maybe misunderstanding that that should be the primary goal of a link building campaign. We mostly look at getting a link that really is driving a lot of click-through traffic, like hundreds of clicks. Sometimes we get links that actually drive conversions, and we celebrate. But it's very, it's rare. It's not most of the links that we build. We're happy if the links that we're getting are getting some clicks. That's a sign that they are useful. But you're not going to get hundreds and dozens, and you're probably not going to get them sufficient to really show an ROI. Like when a lot of clients will maybe be comparing the ROI between PPC or AdWords and link building, and if they're thinking about it that way, that's where maybe the goals and expectations aren't aligned properly. Now, we have had some success in campaigns where we are looking to build click-through links, but it's a different approach in large measure. It's a lot more kind of jumping into the niche and taking part in forums and engage with people, and you might end up needing to engage and participate in various communities for months before you're actually going to land that link that's going to drive that traffic. When clients come to us looking for just those types of links, we're likely to say that we're not the right partner for you, but we will say that if we have a long-term sustainable campaign together, we will build some links that achieve that result. But just saying we only want those, it's really going to make the campaign difficult.
Yeah, and then the true value, of course, is seeing the ranking improve over time, and then traffic and conversions coming from Google.
Yes.
Next question. A good one too. So there's so much out there about content marketing. How would someone get links from bloggers and influencers that has a website which does not have a blog or article resource section, that's only an e-commerce website?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if I'm running an e-commerce website, I still want to have some content that's designed to be informational, top of the marketing funnel, meaning it has a broad audience that certainly includes your target customer, whatever marketing persona you've created that's your ideal buyer, but isn't just limited to that. Now, I don't think that the right content marketing play for every small business is to just create a blog. I think a lot of businesses are better off maybe investing in one or two pieces of really good content, whether that's visual content or interactive content or really in-depth informational content, than they are in just kind of churning out 400-word blog posts twice a week. But I really do think for a successful link building campaign that you're going to have some sort of marketing funnel on your site, and some of that content designed to draw in that broad audience, which is going to give you the most options for link building. It absolutely is possible to build links to e-commerce sites just to the product or the category pages, but it can be very difficult to sustain a long-term campaign with just that. A lot of it depends on how unique or interesting your service or products are. If you sell a really kind of cool or unique product, you're going to be better able to get links to those product pages than if you sell insurance. It's just the truth.
A scale of 1 to 10, what's the value of social bookmarking links?
Oh, I mean, maybe a 2 if they're actually used and somebody might click on them. I don't think there's any SEO value in those types of links. They're not really something that we pursue. So I'll say a 2. I think any link that somebody might see and click on could have some value, but I wouldn't certainly invest in a campaign built around those.
Yeah, and it depends who, right? Like if it's a influencer or something, then it might make sense from a different marketing perspective. Okay, last question, because we only have a couple minutes left. Someone is moving from one platform to the next, going through a site migration, changing their URL structure. Any tips on making sure their links to their site keep value? And should they be changing the links themselves, or just depending on different tips and tools to keep that link juice?
Make sure your redirects are in place is obviously important. You don't want to have a whole bunch of redirect loops either. I mean, it's thought that maybe a little bit of quote unquote link juice is lost in a 301 redirect, and so you want it as clean and concise as possible. There is sometimes some value in going out and basically kind of what we call link reclamation, which is asking websites to change a link that may exist. I mostly find that to be not necessarily the most effective way to spend your time. If you can just say you've got 100 links pointing to a particular page and the URL has changed, even though you might lose a little bit of the link equity by redirecting that page to its new location and just keeping the links in place, it's going to take more time and efforts to reach out to 100 sites to reclaim a link that you've already built. I would invest that in building new links and just make sure that your redirects are properly in place, and again, if a user were to click on one of those links, that is it going to redirect them to a place that it would expect to be? That's the question you want to be asking yourself.
Yeah, don't try to trick people with redirects from a piece of content to a money page. First of all, Google will ignore it in the long run, and it just doesn't work. Okay, we had a lot of questions come in, and we'll be working with Cody and the Page One Power team to address most of these questions, which we'll be sending out after the webinar. Also, there will be a video version of the webinar, of today's webinar, up on the SEJ YouTube channel, along with a recap on SEJ itself. Thank you, Cody. Really enjoyed your content today and the Q&A time that we had together.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. Thanks everyone for the questions. Like Lauren said, we'll be getting back to you if we didn't get a chance to answer your questions. I'm seeing so many good ones here. This is really exciting. I love answering these questions, and so if you didn't get your question answered, you'll be hearing from us.
Awesome. And just to let everyone know, our next SEJ Marketing Think Tank will be on March 8th. The subject matter will be how to get more engagement on Instagram. So if you're looking for some Instagram help or some social media help, our executive editor, Kelsey Jones, will be going through that. And please, after we end the webinar, take some time to hang around for just a minute or so to fill out a survey at the end. It helps us make our webinars better and bring you better content. So again, Cody, always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by the SEJ Think Tank. And we'll be following up with everyone soon.
See you next time.